That Gimel. If a domesticated animal or a wild animal drank from mekatos, it's invalid. All birds invalidate mekatos except for a dove because it sucks. The saratzim invalidate mekatos except for a weasel because it laps. Gamil says a snake also invalidates mekatos because it spits. Elias says a mouse also invalidates mekatos. If someone decides to drink mekatos, Reb Eliezer says it is disqualified. Reb Yeshua says it becomes disqualified when he tilts the barrel. Reb Yoshi says when are these things said with regard to unconsecrated water, but with regard to unconsecrated water, Reb Eliezer says it becomes disqualified when he tilts the flask. And Reb Yeshua says it becomes disqualified when he drinks. And if he poured the water directly into his throat, the remaining mekatos is valid. Regarding mekatos that became disqualified, one may not mix it into mortar, so he will not make a stumbling block to others. If Yeshua says it's nullified, and regarding a cow that drank mekatos, its flesh is tummy for a period of 24 hours. If Yeshua says the mekatos is nullified in a cow's intestines.
Okay. Mechatas for efer chatas. So you've got the mechatas, the water that has been that has been sanctified, and the ashes also that of the cow itself. Lo yavirem ben nahar b'sfina. There is a gezerah not to transport them across a river or on a boat. V'lo yishitem al pnei hamayim, and you shouldn't even float them across the water. V'lo yamod b'tzad zeh v'yizorkem l'tzad zeh, and the person shouldn't stand on one bank of the river and throw it across to somebody on the other bank of the river. Okay.
The reason is why they shouldn't transport it on a boat.
Okay, so the reason is Gahati explains what's from Maseches Chagiga. There's an explanation in the Gemara there, because of a Maaseh Shehaya. There was once an incident where with a person who was carrying mei chatas and efer chatas across the Jordan in a boat, and they found a kazayas of corpse flesh that was stuck in the bottom of the boat.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and at that time, the Chachamim said that they made a gezerah specifically because of this Maaseh Shehaya, that a person is not allowed to carry mei chatas or efer chatas in a boat. Okay. I'm not sure I understand the svara of why you would make a gezerah like that. It seems like, okay, it once happened, but why should that happen again? But at any rate, I don't understand it, and this is Chachamim. They know what they're doing, I assume.
We had this several times in the Gemaras, though, where they have one incident and they make it into gezerah on something.
Yeah, so I
can't think of the things right now, but I know this.
Okay, no, that's not a valid case. I was about to say it's not comparable. Okay, aval over hu b'mayim ad tzavaro, but a person is allowed to walk through the water, so he can if he can cross the river just by walking through it, by fording it, even if he's going deep up to his neck, which incidentally I do not recommend ever doing, because rivers, if a river is going up to your neck, it's almost certainly going to knock you over and wash you downstream. Because water, I saw an interesting thing about the fluid dynamics of a river is that the river does not flow uniformly. The surface and the sides flow much more slowly than the middle. So it's like you've got this channel of super fast water going under the surface. That's where the water really flows fast.
That's why people get swept away, I guess.
People get swept away. Like if you go into a river basically deeper than your knees, you're at risk of getting knocked over. So you got to be very, very careful when fording a river. Just saying. Okay.
I don't know. This says about walking on the surface of the water, but I don't know too many people that can walk on water. There's only one person.
No. Okay. So you're allowed. So, but if a person had to do that, and he would be allowed to carry the mei chatas with him as long as he's not like actually swimming. Over hu tahor lechatas. A tahor person who's purified himself with the intention of being tahor for mechatas, and he can carry across a kli that is tahor for chatas. Okay, so this he can do even in a boat as long as he doesn't have the water. Uva mayim she'einam mekudashim, and he could even carry the water fresh from the stream that hasn't been sanctified. It's only once the ashes enter into it that there's this gezerah that comes into play. So the chachamim were not gozer on the pre-stage where you're still transporting the kli or just the water. Okay. Mishna Zayin, Efer kasher shenis arev be'efer makle. What happens if the ashes of the parah got mixed up with ashes of wood, just stum wood ashes unsanctified? Well, the two questions that we have over here. One is can the ashes be used at all? And two, even if you can't use them at all, do they still have a din of tumah? Because if somebody transports the ashes without, they themselves do become tameh. This is one of the chukim of the parah aduma is that you can become tameh just by handling the ashes or by handling the water. So it's metame tahorim and the metare tameim. So that's the paradox of the parah aduma. So if you want to know if somebody who handles these ashes becomes tameh, well, here we go after the rov. If the majority is stam wood ashes, then there's no tumah. But if it's majority parah ashes, then it's still metame. But you definitely cannot make a kiddush with it because Chazal would go there that you shouldn't be able to use these ashes that have been diluted. The Rabbi Eliezer Omer mekadshin b'chulan. So Rabbi Eliezer, he's kind of consistent with his shita over here. We've seen him before talking about how, for example, we saw in Kodshim very recently. We've been doing our chazara in Kodshim. He says that if the blood got, let's say the blood of a korban got mixed with blood with stam blood, then he says you can still sprinkle it, and I just view the other blood as water that you're throwing on the mizbeh. Okay. So a similar thing over here. He says, okay, so there'll be a bit of wood ashes mixed in with it, but at least you'll have some parah ashes in there, and the halacha does not follow Rabbi Eliezer. Okay, Mishna Ches meichatas shenifsalu. So the meichatas became pasul. We've seen many ways in which that can happen, with like an animal drinking from it, or any other cause of why the water became pasul. Okay, now even though it has become pasul and you cannot use it for purification, it nonetheless can transmit tumah. That we said the ashes when you're handling the water, not for if you're handling. Let's just be clear about this. If you have picked up the meichatas in order to sprinkle on somebody, you do not become tameh. What if you're doing it as part of the ritual? You're picking it up because you need to put your thing in and sprinkle people. That does not transmit tumah. But if you're just the gopher who's running and going and fetching the water to give to the kohen to sprinkle, that's the person who's carrying the water. He's not going to be doing the sprinkling, and he becomes tameh. Okay. Again, it's a light tumah. It's an evening tumah. He just needs to go to mikveh and he'll be tahor in the evening. But he nonetheless becomes tameh. And furthermore, if somebody has purified himself for truma, so let's say he's a kohen and he went to mikveh because he wants to eat truma that night. So now he's purified himself for truma, but truma is a lower kedusha than chatas. Okay, so So here, this person, even though he is tahor for truma, if any of this water, this pasul meichatas water, is splashed on him, whether it's on his hands or on his body, he becomes tameh. There's a tahor lechatas, but if somebody had purified himself for meichatas in other words, he's a kohen and he's ready to sprinkle the meichatas on people, and it turns out that this meichatas became pasul. Lo biyadav b'lo begufo. He does not become tameh at all from this water, even though it's pasul to use. Because once again, he's prepared himself in order to do the ritual, and therefore, when he's handling this water, even though it cannot be used, but it's not, nonetheless is not metameh him, not even by touch, not by carrying, not by touch, nowhere on his body. Okay, now what happens if this water becomes tame? Okay, now if the water becomes tame, again, the Tara Truma becomes tame either by touching his hands or his body. So his din hasn't changed, and that makes sense because puzzle water versus tame water is tame water is obviously more chamor. But a Tara lechatas, somebody who had purified himself for chatas, now if this tame water splashes on the rest of his body, like let's say it's on the floor and he puts his feet into it, he does not become tame. Okay, because water does not tame liquids are not matame the guf through anywhere other than the hands, because their hands there's a separate gezerah on hands that hands can become tame, and once his hands become tame, bam, the rest of his body becomes tame as well. When it comes to chatas. So I mean, just to understand again, liquids minatora actually don't become tame at all, but Chazal made this extra gezerah on liquids. That they actually become that they go on a higher level, that they're actually matame back to the level of a rishon. So if a person's hands come into contact with tame water, his hands become tame. That's incidentally okay. And because with mechatas we don't make a differentiation between the hands and the rest of the body, so that tumor automatically goes to the rest of the body. Okay, are we clear?
Yes.
Okay, good. Then let's go back to Zain Hay.
If someone fills his barrel and a barrel for katos water, he first fills his barrel and ties it to the carrying pole, and he subsequently fills the barrel for katos water. If he filled the barrel of katos water first and afterwards filled his barrel, it is disqualified. If he put his barrel behind him and the barrel for katos water in front of him, but if he put the barrel for katos water behind him, it's disqualified. If they were both for katos water, he places one in front of him and one in back of him, and this is valid since it is impossible. If someone takes the rope in his hand, along the way it is valid, but not along his way it is. But not along his way it is invalid. Concerning this matter, someone went to Yavna for 3 festivals, and on the 3rd festival they invalidated him. They validated it for him in a special ruling for that time. If he coils the rope a little bit at a time, the water is valid. But if he coils the rope at the end, the water is invalid. And Rabbi Yossi says it was in this case that they validated the water. They validated the water in a special ruling for that time.
Okay. Negayim Yud Zion.
Two nesakim, one inside the other, are separated by a row of hair. If the row of hair is split in one place, the affected person is tameh. If it's split in 2 places, he's tahor. How wide must the opening be? 2 hairs wide. If the row of hair is split in one place, the width of a grist, the nesakim are tahor. One who had a nesek with blonde hair is confirmed tameh, and if the black hair grew in the nesek, the afflicted person becomes tahor. Even if the black hair falls out, he remains tahor. Reb Shimon says, Ben Yehuda says in the name of Reb Shimon, any nesak that was once tahor will never be tameh. Reb Shimon says any blonde hair that was once tahor will never again be tameh. A person who has a nesek the size of a grist that would then cover his entire head is tahor. The head and the beard do not prevent one another from becoming tahor, and these are the words of Reb Yehuda. Reb Shimon says they do prevent one another. Said Reb Shimon, it is a logical argument. The skin of the face and the skin of the body, which has something separating them, prevents one another from becoming tameh. It therefore follows that the head and the beard, which have nothing separating them, certainly prevent one another from becoming tameh. The head and the beard do not combine with one another, nor do they spread from one to another. What is the definition of the beard? From the joint of the jaw until the protrusion at the top of the trachea. Okay. And there are 3 shields. A bench shield is susceptible to becoming tameh with midjas tuma. A shield with which combatants play on the sporting grounds is susceptible to becoming tameh with corpse tuma. And the play shield of Arabs is tahor from any form of tuma. There are 3 wagons. A wagon like a kadera is susceptible to becoming tameh with midjas tuma. A wagon made like a bed is susceptible to becoming tameh with corpse tuma. And a wagon made for transporting of stones is tahor from any form of tuma. There are 3 troughs. A trough with a capacity of between 2 logs and 9 cobs that could develop to crack is susceptible to becoming tame with midges tumor. An intact trough is susceptible to becoming tame with corpse tumor, and a trough of great proportions is tolerable from any form of tumor.
Okay.
And the bottom. Okay, you're Dalit. Bird offerings precede mincha offerings because they are in the category of blood offerings. A sin is mincha offering precedes a voluntary mincha offering because it is bought for a sin. A bird katos precedes a bird ola, and so too with its consecration. All katos offerings mentioned in the Torah precede asham offerings, except for the asham offering of the Mitzorah, because it is brought to the Mitzorah field to make the Mitzorah fit. All asham offerings mentioned in the Torah must be in the second year and must be worth at least 2 silver shekels, except for the asham offering of a Nazir and the asham offering of a Torah, which must be in the first year and not be worth 2 silver shekels. Just as they precede one another in the offering, so they precede one another in the consumption. Between a shalom offering of yesterday and a shalom offering of today, that of yesterday takes precedence. Between the shalom offering of yesterday and the akatos offering or asham offering of today, that of yesterday takes precedence. These are the words of Rav Meir. But the comments say the katos offering takes precedence because it is a most holy offering.
Okay.
And ketubos. If one stipulated to give money, if one stipulated to give money to his son-in-law and subsequently reneged, she should sit by until her hair turns white. Osmond says she can say, had I stipulated for myself, I would sit until my hair turns white. Now that my father has stipulated for me, what can I do? Either marry me or divorce me, said Rabban Gamil. I approve of Osmond's view. If one contests the ownership of a field and is assigned on as a witness, Osmond says he can say the second one is amenable to me, the first one is more powerful than he. The sages, however, say he has lost his right. If he made a boundary mark for another, he lost his right. If someone went overseas and the path to his field was lost, Osmond says he may go with the shortest path. And the comment, however, say he must buy a path even for 10,000 zuz or fly in the air.
Okay.
Okay.
Masros.
And Masros. Bet. If children hide figs for the Sabbath and forgot to tie them, they may not eat them if they may not eat after the Sabbath before tiding them. A basket for the Sabbath, which Beit Shammai exempts, but Beis Hillel declares it liable. But Yehuda says he who gathers a basket full to send to his friend may likewise not eat before tiding. If one takes olives from the vat, he may dip them into salt one by one and eat them. If he salted them and put them before himself, he is liable. And as Eliezer says, from a clean vat he is liable, from an unclean one he is exempt because he can return the remainder. One may drink over the press with either warm or cold and be exempt. So says Rav Meir. Rav Eliezer, Rav Tzadok declares them liable. The sages say with warm he is liable, with cold he is exempt.
Okay, we're done.
So we got 5, 6. Okay, good. All right, got this.
Okay.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Tomorrow, Tomorrow's Friday, right? Have a great day. Thank you. Bye.